everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Best Books of 2022 podcast, where we're talking all things Scottish books. And I'm joined by Vikki Reilly. Hello, Vikki. Part 1 is out there and waiting for you, where we talked almost all about fiction. It would have been huge if we'd fitted everything in, so we decided we would split them into 2. So before we got on to poetry and non-fiction, there are still, believe it or not, there's still a couple of things to talk about regarding the fiction. It was such a great year and lots of great short stories, maybe not as much as previously, but my favourite one was the fabulous Dilys Rose and her Seafret short stories. Dilys is just an absolute icon of Scottish writing. She's fantastic.
At the same time, underappreciated, I think.
I would agree, yeah. Often, you know, they say, oh, he's a actor's actor. She's kind of a writer's writer, you know, because the folk who really know her absolutely adore her and often say, I know a lot of people who teach Scottish literature at Glasgow University in particular, and Strathclyde, who really, really rate Dilys Rose as a writer. And she was another guest on the podcast, and a wonderful guest she was. So you can...
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Not really, that I don't enjoy any, like I enjoy all of them.
I just assume that, you know, that's...
Of course.
So, now, however, we didn't manage to talk about crime. I'm moving a rather large pile of books towards me.
I think this will probably be more heavy on you, because I didn't have as big a crime year this year. I think mainly because I tend to listen to crime fiction rather than read it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, just I didn't listen to as many audiobooks this year as I normally do. Or when I did, it was mostly non-fiction, and that seems to go in. Like, I started a lot, and then I just kept finding that it wasn't working. But with non-fiction, I listened listens to them, and it was fine. So it's been less of a... There's lots of crime fiction books in my account, but I've not got round to them yet.
Well, I thought a good way of actually moving into them is to talk about a book which isn't really crime, but he brings them out every Christmas and they're fantastic. And it's Denzil Myrick's Tale from Kinloch, the latest one, which is just out, or at least it's out. Ghosts in the Gloaming. I love these books. They're Compton Mackenzie-esque, you know, they're the Maggie. I mean, they're so close to that kind of thing. They're just a real feel-good read. I really enjoy them.
That's because you spend time on the boats. Yeah,
possibly. I was a big fan of the kind of film versions of Whiskey Galore and the Maggie and all that kind of stuff, which that kind of tips into. I really love them, and there's supernatural aspects, and there's small town skullduggery and all that kind of stuff, and I really enjoy them. But he had quite a year, Denzil, because he had an anniversary, 10 years.
Books. He's such a machine.
So this was the Death of Remembrance.
That's the DCI Daily one.
Yep, 10 years of DCI Daily.
I can't believe that. That's mad.
And do you reckon about one a year he did? Do you reckon?
I think so, yeah.
But he also did a terrific standalone called Terms of Restitution, which is all about gangster families in Glasgow. As you probably
was that this year?
Oh, now you're probably... Do you know what? I knew this would happen.
Oh no, you know.
It's last year.
Or maybe the paperback probably came out this year.
This is the paperback. I know you're trying to save me. I'm not going to check. That one was definitely 2022, as was Ghosts in the Gloaming. But this is a great book. It just came out the year before. But, as you say, he's an absolute writing machine.
And is he good? Because I've not read Terms of Restitution, but I've read some of the Kinloch ones. Like the difference between like the urban setting and the rural setting.
It could be two different writers apart from the sense of humour and the kind of wickedness that he's got, I think. That kind of sets him out, and I mean that in the best possible way. Do you have any crime that you want to mention, or will I just fire through this?
You bash on. You bash
Okay.
on.
The latest Alan Parks, May God Forgive.
Right,
And you know, these are annual. We're on to May now. We've had January, February, March, April, so it's getting, it's moving along.
I know. And he
about
won the McIlvanney as well.
He did win the McIlvanney.
Yeah.
Talking of McIlvanney, it's as if we rehearsed that. Talking of McIlvanney, Liam McIlvanney's The Heretic.
Right, that's follow-up to the Quaker, isn't it?
And yeah, it's another fast-paced Glasgow set. What I really like about it is he moves around the city. He doesn't just say city centre, so he goes south side, he goes east end. It's a real lovely guy, a bit like his dad. Oh, you'll hate me saying that. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But like, you know, he writes about the city and the people in it. In crime fiction, it is the way that maybe you've read it before, but there's certain writers and certain genres that you expect certain things, you know, and I think crime can be like that. You know, it's a comfort. It's a bit like reading Stephen King or Ian Banks or, you know, Ed McBain.
No, I've got Liam McIlvanney on my phone.
You should listen to it.
So I will get to it.
Someone else who cranks them out, the latest Skelf book by Doug Johnson called Black Heart. I've only finished that recently. And for those that don't know, the Skelfs are a family of undertakers and detectives. Live in Edinburgh.
What a combo.
It's an amazing combo, and
you worry that it might get into Burke and Hare territory, you know, give themselves
definitely. Well, at the beginning of this, there's a fantastic fight at a funeral, which kind of kicks things off. And a bit like Ever Dundas, you get the feeling that Doug really relishes writing this stuff. You know,
well, he's doing a science fiction book next year. Yeah, I can't remember the title. It's just totally gone from my head, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing that.
Another series, another book from Claire McCleary, Death Drop in the Harkis and Laird series, 2 Aberdeen set detectives. It's just unlike, and who are unlike any other detectives, really. You know, they're great. Claire also writes about all their domestic issues and problems with their kids and all that stuff. In the meantime, they're trying to solve a variety of murders. You know, there's a new Aberdeen set TV show that's just started.
Yes, I've forgotten the name.
I think it might be Granite City.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Now, I've watched 2 of them. I really wanted to like it. You know, I watched the 3rd one before I make my judgment. But
is it the BBC? Is it the BBC?
It's BBC Scotland, I think. But
BBC Scotland. Adapt these instead.
Adapt these instead. Absolutely. This is your Aberdeen detective series. It's absolutely crying out to be.
Get in touch with Saraband.
yeah. They'll sort you out. They'll be delighted. And I think the final one of Helen Sedgwick's a series of crime novels, and I forget the name of the town that they're set in, but What Doesn't Break Us is set in the north of England, I think.
Yeah, like sort of Cumbria.
Yeah, this really is kind of the secrets and lies of a small town and how they all come spilling out, and it's become a bit Wicker Man-y, you know.
Well, you kind of got, I've only read the first one, so you kind of got that feeling from the first one that you were like, this town isn't quite right.
Yeah, that's right. And there's cracks at the edge of it, and Burrowhead, that's the word I was looking for. The Burrowhead mysteries. Helen's another terrific writer, and who has written science fiction herself in the past. But these novels have been as gripping as any you would read. If you're looking for a new crime thriller series, you could go and get. The first one was When the Dead Come Calling. You could get these, and they would sort you out, no bother at all.
Yeah, one other than Liam McIlvanney on my phone. This year I also download. So I do have like 16 Horses by Greg Buchanan,
right?
Which opens with the discovery of 16 severed horses' heads in a guy's farm. and it's set in like a small town in England. I think it's a small coastal town.
Right.
So I do, because that got quite a lot of fuss sort of last year and this year, because the paperback came out this year. So I've downloaded that one, and the other one that I've downloaded that I've not got round to yet is Welcome to Cooper by Tariq Ashkenani, and that won the debut Bloody Scotland prize. And again, it's set in America, so it's, I don't know, I'm in, like, having read David Ross's one, it'll be interesting to read another Scot portraying an American set novel. So, you know, Christmas holidays are coming up.
Plenty of time in your hands. Yeah, I think George Patterson has started a theme. You know, he's
Oh
American.
yeah, of course.
Now, the final person I want to name the book is the fantastic Douglas Skelton and
Oh right,
Honourable Thief, which is set in kind of 1715. It's buckles your swashes. It's absolutely, you know, that kind of thing. It's
1715.
roaring.
So
Yeah.
so before the first Jacobite rebellion, but before the last one.
A nation divided, a city in chaos. So you know that you get the idea of that. There's all, and it starts off in London, and there's a. Have you watched the TV show Harlots? Are you aware of that show? It's on Netflix or something like that. It's a really good TV. It's a good show, but it's got a great cast in it as well. Samantha Morton plays the kind of matriarch figure in it. This is a kind of mix between Walter Scott and Harlots, if you like. There's that, you know, it's body, it's outrageous, it's thrilling. There's kind of Robert Louis Stevenson aspects to it as well. Yeah, you just fire through it. I wanted to give praise to Douglas himself, because he's such a varied writer. If you think what he started out doing, which were kind of straight crime fiction, and then he had the Dead Cat Boogie, kind of almost tongue-in-cheek spoof of crime fiction, almost, you know, with your Sam Spade central character. And then he writes a one-off book, which is
Janus Run, yeah.
Which, you know, was crying out to be adapted as a film, I think. I mean, just a brilliant book.
I still think about that book. Sometimes I'll think about, like, because that was sort of quite technology based as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, in fact, these days it would be crying out for Netflix adaptation. That would be it. And then, of course, the Rebecca Connolly series, set up in Inverness, female journalist protagonist, another terrific section of books. And, you know, hats off to you, Douglas, because you're an incredible writer. I love everything he does.
Canelo are an interesting publisher as well, because they started up as a digital first company. Right. I don't know if they still mainly are digital first, but that's a nice looking hardback.
A lovely book, yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, again, this is another book that I've downloaded onto my phone, which is The Bookseller of Inverness, which is I think it's a standalone historical mystery by S.G. McLean, who does does that other historical crime series, Seaton. Oh God, it's just falling out of my head. But
it's a mess.
That's me. But that's similar. That's a similar sort of scenario, because that's sort of Jacobite rebellion type thing and going on in the background too.
It's also got the whole, there's a kind of secret society of, you know, thieves and ne'er-do-wells that are, you know, around, and it's all very, you know, there's lots of kind of.
They would be a good pairing. They would be a good pairing at a festival or something like that.
They would do festival organisers. Hello. Take a deep breath. That is the fiction over and done with. So I think next we said we would talk about poetry.
Okay.
Is that right? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, well, I didn't read tons, but probably more than previous years. You know, I'm not a massive poetry reader, but I did read a few. There was the latest from Kevin P. Gilday, his anxiety music, and Kevin's doing some great stuff now. You know, he said he had another show at Edinburgh.
Yeah,
I saw him launch,
which I missed, which I'm really annoyed about.
He only did a short run.
Right.
I think like for maybe a 10-day run or something like that, which I think a lot of people are deciding that's the way to go.
It's probably healthier, probably better for your body to do a short run.
And your bank account as well.
Yeah.
I saw him launch this, a great night at the old hairdressers in Glasgow. I mean, Kevin does it all. He goes from being really moving to really funny. Really makes you think about certain things, particularly social issues and cultural issues in Scotland. Yeah, I love Kevin. I loved anxiety music as well.
I get sent PDFs of these manuscripts more than have the book. So, but yeah, anxiety music was one of the books that I picked up as well.
Well, I run through my choice, and then you can run through yours, and then we're not looking at.
They might be the same.
Yeah. So, 404 Inc. had another cracking year. Andreas N. Orderica, what a lovely man, and what a beautiful, beautiful collection of poems. Again, I hate to repeat myself so often, but we had him on the podcast, and I mean, they're just bursting with colour and vibrancy and emotion. Yeah, stuff that'll make you angry, but there's stuff that'll melt your heart. I mean, you just a beautiful collection. Would you agree?
Absolutely agree, and a bit sexy as well.
Oh, you're right. It's a thing you don't expect. I mean, obviously he's now living in Scotland, but the heat that comes off the page almost, he captures this, and you don't. I mean, Scottish poets are all, oh, we're doomed. No, they're not. But historic
fags in the cold.
Yeah, aye. Finding different ways to describe, the haar coming in from the. And this, you're right. It's sexy. It's sexy. It's sensual. It's warm. It's yeah. I mean, it's if you're feeling a bit kind of down in the dumps on a winter's day, grab a copy of this and read it, because it'll change the mood.
That is a good suggestion, especially our vitamin D's down at the moment.
It's written vitamin D. That's what at least this I know is. So we're going to talk about publishing and publishers later.
Wait, no, I've got more poetry.
Oh no, I've got more poetry as well.
All right.
But some of it came out on some of the
all right.
We'll talk about, and that includes Taproot and Mary Relativism, which is a really hard hitting in a lot of places. Really, it makes you stop short and think and rethink about certain things that you think, well, how do I actually feel about this if this is how Mary Forneill is expressing it? Really powerful collection of poetry, I would say.
And see, I work with Patrick.
Yes.
I work with Heather from 4 as well, so I feel like I'm a bit biased.
Okay, well, be prepared to be biased again, because what a great
cover. Oh, that, yeah.
Brian Holton's Hard Roads and Cold Haired Twins, and its translation, which we talked about earlier, of two famous and long dead Chinese poets, Du Fu and Li Bei, into Scots. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, and yeah, it's literally a beautiful book, because there's lots of illustrations and lithographs and things like that. Yeah, I love it, absolutely love it. And that's one of my favorite of your podcasts was that one where with Brian, because I thought, well, he was lovely, and and his readings were brilliant, and he just I loved the way he spoke about his work. I just thought it was such a really good chat between you and him. Yeah, he was very easy to talk to, definitely.
And I love because he translated the Chinese into Scots rather than English, and quite a few folk have done that, or at least brought translated into Scots rather than into English, and I like that. I think that's a great idea.
Carla Woodburn's Carlo, which is Leamington Books, again had a really good year, Leamington Books, and this is, he talked about sensual. This is sensual. It's funny. It's it reminded me a bit of Oh, Sonnet Youth. Kat Hepburn's writing her poetry as well. And I didn't realise Carla's got a show, if she still has it, on Sunny Govan Radio. So I must tune into that because the book's really good book.
Yeah.
Oh, this has just reminded me of something that we meant to do. Oh, what we're going to do. So it's Marcus Mack's Polaris.
That's going to be one of my choices as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. Poems and songs of the Atlantic archipelago. And it's not just Gaelic and English poetry with translations, but you've also got Scots, Irish, Manx, Welsh, Cornish, Jerry's, and Polari, which Marcus was on the podcast and told me all about this. And the reason I kind of groaned there was I met him at the Edinburgh Book Festival and I said, oh, last year you said we didn't cover enough Gaelic.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But then I said, we'll get you on to talk about reading Gaelic poetry. So there may be an addition to this one if he agrees to do a wee chat about it. And if we don't, I hugely apologise, Marcus. But this is a terrific book.
Yeah.
Again, by Leamington Books, as I say, had another good year.
Like that's the thing with a lot of the poetry collections this year, is that a lot of them had maybe like a theme or something to do with them as well. And like he kind of tells the history of Scotland through these poems, which seems like, when you think about it, what a simple and brilliant idea, and he does it in such an imaginative way, because he uses so many different kinds of language. And yeah, I really, because a lot of the time I read these to pick out extracts for, and I find it really hard to just pick like 3, because I don't want to pick too many, because you want folk to like go and buy the books. But I always find it really difficult, and I found it really, really difficult with Polaris, is to just pick three poems. I was like, there's so many that I want to highlight here. And
Marcus is a real Renaissance man, because he released a Gaelic pop album as well.
I know, I listened to it on Spotify, and it was I really loved that as well. Yeah, he's got such a lovely singing voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel bad that we didn't organise to give him on this, but we may do. Let's see everything.
Drop him a line.
We can add another hour to the.
I could talk a wee bit about Gaelic books, because we did an event this year at the Mod, right. Celebrating. I'm not going to be able to pronounce the names right, but celebrating the songs from like a particular Gaelic songbook, and a particular Gaelic poet as well. Beautiful books published by Acker, which is who are one of the main Gaelic publishers in Scotland. And it was and I don't speak Gaelic, so I didn't really know what was going on in the event, because it was all in Gaelic, obviously. And but I could still feel like the energy from the audience, and like the folk on the stage would say, like the way the sort of push and pull of the energy between the folk on the stage and so it was still like such a lovely, brilliant event as well. I really, really enjoyed it.
Now a little smaller kind of pamphlet by David Ross Linklater called Star Muck Burach, excuse me, which came out this year, and I wanted to mention it not just because David Linklater is a great poet, but also because it's come out with Wish Fulfillment Press. Have you heard of those? No, small.
No,
well, I think it's run by, I kind of know it's run by Philip John Taylor, who I know from the band Pause and his own solo music. He's a fantastic musician. Pause were a great kind of rock band. I think they're split now and he's doing his solo stuff. But so it's really interesting that he's kind of moving into doing a small press and doing publishing.
That's a really lovely looking pamphlet as well.
It's good quality. Now, but I have to talk finally about Jenny Fagan's The Bone Library, because wow, this absolutely knocked my socks off. So it was written when she was writer in residence at Summerhall, which we mentioned before. And the Bone Library was one of the rooms, or one of the bits there, and she was writing poetry onto the bones, and it sounds like an amazing thing. There's an interview with her in the not the current snack magazine, but the one before that, where she talks all about it. I saw there's poems here which look at Mary Dick in the family, who kind of set up a lot of the Bone Library and that kind of thing. There's one for Tom Leonard, which is a beautiful poem, and it's a stunning collection, as you would expect. I mean, I think people know Jenny more for her fiction, especially with Luckenbooths being so big, than they do her poetry. But do seek out her poetry, because it's always astonishing.
And you can actually, when you go to Summerhall, there's a big cabinet like for everybody to see of the bones that, I mean, it probably isn't all of them, but there's a big selection of the bones that she was looking at and writing on as well. It's really lovely.
And quickly before we go, we mentioned them last year, going to mention them again because they do fantastic work. It's speculative books, and just a few that I read this year, which I love. Again, another musician, who I know better as a musician, but she's a fantastic poet as well, Josephine Sillars, and Desperate Characters. Someone else who makes music as well as writing poetry. This is gorgeous. Ross Wilcock, Once Upon a Time in Glasgow. Quote on the back from Kevin P. Gilday. And Henry Bell, who I'm going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Non-fiction as well, who's part of the Gutter team, as well.
Yeah, that came out right at the start of the year, didn't
it?
Yeah,
right at the beginning, the last Lochan. And Henry's poetry is always worth checking out.
I think I featured that way back in the beginning of the year. It was poems about Glasgow.
There are poems about Glasgow in a different book, which I'll maybe.
Maybe I'm getting mixed up. Yeah.
So will we do non-fiction and see?
Well, I just want a couple of poetry. Is Blood Salt Spring by Hannah Labrie.
That's a great one. I'd forgotten about that. Did that come out a while ago?
April, March, maybe.
Yeah. No, that's a terrific read.
I kind of think she should be the queen of the world.
Wow. That's if you're listening, Hannah, that's a big, especially now.
But she sees everything so clearly, and that's like really expressed in the poetry. And and when you see her perform as well, she is absolutely magnetic on stage. She's so good. And the other one that I wanted to mention was Imogen Sterling's Love the Sinner as well.
And we had her on the podcast. So that's great. That's a fantastic collection.
And the whole year I've been trying to see her perform, because she's been performing it as well. But I think she's getting a theatrical performance of it. I think she's doing something with the Traverse and maybe the Citizens as well. Maybe not the Citizens. I can't remember. Anyway, so I hope I managed to get. Something always happens, and I've never managed it. But again, such a brilliant. It seems like an obvious thing to do, to take the 7 deadly sins and write poems around them, but I just thought that was such a brilliant collection.
And you've also reminded me, it just came out recently, Leila Josephine's new collection as well. Now, can you remember what it's called before I Google?
What was that?
Can you remember what it's called? Because
Public and Private, or In Private and Public.
Yeah. And Leila's just terrific. We had her on the last podcast, but one, she reads from the book if you want to go and check it out. And she's a great poet and a great artist in the widest sense.
Absolutely, yeah. It was because she was talking about doing daddy drag in your podcast, and that was, I think that was the Fringe before the pandemic, wasn't it?
Was, because I saw it at the Tron Theatre. She was going to take it through to Edinburgh again, I think, and then everything shut down. So it
was such a highlight as well. But I think what she was saying, what she was saying, I could completely understand. Totally.
So shall we move? Are we happy to move on to non-fiction?
Yes.
I'm going to reach down and grab some books here, so please. So you talk about the first.
I know. One. I said it was the year of the memoir at the start of
some time ago.
And so I've written so there was One Body by Catherine Simpson, published by Sarabande, which was about her relationship with her body, and there was Small Town Girl by Donna McLean, which was just
this year?
that was this year, yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, no, that was this year, which had my jaw was on the floor the whole
I
time.
would have mentioned that. For some reason in my head, I thought that was last year.
Yeah, so there was Wayward by Vashti Bunyan as well, about her travel from London to the Outer Hebrides to sort of just begin a new life.
It's a really interesting story. It's one I knew a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like I considered that a Scottish book, even though she's not Scottish, but like it was Scottish. There was The Instant by Amy Liptrot.
Right. Haven't read that.
It's really good. It's set in Berlin. She goes to Berlin, and it's about love. It's about finding love and feeling lonely, and but it's, and that makes it sound sad, and there's lots of sad bits as what in it. But I found it a really hopeful, lovely book, and about like getting rid of your fear and going ahead and doing the things that you should do to live fully. And I really, really enjoyed that. And then there was Carrie Kills a Man, which has just come out.
Out now, because I will have to get a copy of that to read it.
Which was a brilliant memoir as well. Just so generous and honest. But it was an honest, and even though you know that there's a lot of sadness and really like hard things to have gone through, it's told so lightly and with such generosity of spirit. It was just such a brilliant thing to read. Got Boyfriends by Michael Peterson, which is one of my favourites as well, which cried a lot when I was reading it. I mean, it's like I mean, if you ever, because I've worked with Michael in the past, I know him a wee bit, and it is just like him. Like reading it is just him on the page, like that mixture of cheek and sauciness but real vulnerability and sensitivity as well. It was brilliant. It was I really enjoyed reading that. But I think my two favourite memoirs of this year are
Homelands. Yeah,
Chitra Ramaswamy's Homelands and Ali Miller's The Last Days. So Ali Miller's The Last Days is about, as well as her life story, I suppose. It goes from childhood to pretty much sort of near the present day, and she grew up in the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I just think it was a stunning piece of writing. And she's bringing out a novel next year, and I cannot wait to read that, because how she's inhabited the character of herself in this is really novelistic, because so it makes it feel like it's more than a memoir. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the feeling that you have, like the way she portrays like her confusion and puzzlement as a child to the world that she's in, and the awful vulnerabilities of her teenage self, and her like becoming an adult, where she finds herself in a marriage that's it's a bit of a controlling marriage, quite abusive, and it's so it felt, even though I have not lived a life like her at all, it felt so familiar, and yet it was, I just thought she really does have that novelist's talent of pinpointing character and beautiful sentences to portray moments in time. And I think she's super talented, and I think she's going to be quite a star.
That's fantastic. I must check that out.
Oh, absolutely, totally. I would totally recommend it. And then when I was saying earlier on that Hell Sands might be my favourite book of the year, it's a toss up between this one as well.
This
Because
is one of my favourite books of the year as well.
yeah,
It's
I think
absolutely gorgeous and life affirming.
oh, really, really, because and you would think that because there's so much evidence of cruelty in these books, both in Henry's experience and in Chitra's experience, and yet at the same time it is full of love and hope, and it's just she writes like a dream, like every sentence is magnificent. And Henry Wooga, I'm so glad she's introduced us to Henry Wooga,
Yeah,
who
no,
just
absolutely.
seems like such a brilliant man. And yeah, this was another one that I found myself crying a
No,
lot when I
absolutely
was
right.
reading.
Someone who was just kind of living in the south side of Glasgow, again, not too far from here. And then, here he is, this incredible story that comes out, and her incredible story as well, in the way that the two bring together. And it's a proper friendship. It's absolutely gorgeous. And with Henry's wife as well,
Yeah. But
it's really heartwarming.
yeah, and to me, like I was just like, I like how on the cover it has the word history and it's sort of italicized. And to me, this is history. This is how history should be written. That about like, you get your books about your kings and your queens and your presidents and your warriors and all those kinds of things. But this is real living history, and it does it so I can't believe the amount of things that Henry Wooga experienced in his life, and yet he came out of the experience with no bitterness, with no anger, or maybe he did, but like he's dealt with it in like a brilliant way. But this see it, and I just think this is the kind of histories that should be written about the things that happen in countries
Yeah,
and
it's about
in the world.
individuals, not
Yeah,
about the kind of guys at the top, but
yeah,
the stories of the individuals, definitely.
absolutely. Like it grinds my gears that like there will be folk that write about the pandemic and the history of the pandemic, and they'll be writing about Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock, and not about like the folk behind the tills in supermarkets and the doctors and the nurses that actually were the ones that took care of business. And like just all those stories are so much more important. Who
Um,
gives a shit about those two?
I love it so much that you're so angry that you used the phrase that grinds my gears, which I've not heard in ages.
But yeah,
Um,
more please, Chitra.
yeah, well, yeah, fantastic, absolutely. Well, let me start then with a memoir, but a musical memoir. It's Stuart Braithwaite's
Oh
Two
yeah,
Ships Over Glasgow. I'm a big Mogwai fan, and this really kind of ticked loads of boxes for me because we're roughly about the same age, roughly about the same kind of background. Kind of went to school in Straven and lived kind of out that way. Went to, was smuggled in by his sister. There's some very funny bits where they basically dress him as a girl to kind of get him into gigs. Yeah, it's just,
why? Why
oh,
did you have to be a girl to
well,
get
because
into the?
they were more likely to get a young looking woman in than a young
Oh,
boy. I think that's it's a while since I've read it, but I think that's the thing. But it's particular, a bit like Bobby Gillespie's book, which came out last year. It's the stuff in childhood that really, really kind of grabs you and you enjoy so much. But I would say not just for fans of Mogwai, just fans of memoir in general and of music. And again, White Rabbit books. I mean, what a
White
year!
Rabbit.
Yeah,
I know they're honorary Scottish. That's that.
definitely, definitely. Set up a shop up here or set up a.
Well, see, White Rabbit are part of Orion, which are part of Hachette, who have now
Yeah.
got offices in Edinburgh. So they,
Oh,
so,
so they could do that.
so they're ours.
Because as that, they also did another Scottish related book, Hungry Beat.
Yes, I've not read that yet, and I really there's cheapskate me. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to wait until it comes out paperback.
Scottish independent pop underground movement, 77 to 84. So just kind of when I was starting to get into music, certainly Aztec Camera, who as a boy from Cambuslang, he was just up the road in East Kilbride, so was the Jesus and Mary chain, and this kind of blew my mind. And Douglas McIntyre, Grant McPhee, and journalist Neil Cooper have written this book, and it's thorough. They interview What's really interesting about it is like it's the film Rashomon or Jackie Brown. So you get all these different perspectives on the same thing, and so there's no absolute truth. Because someone will say, oh, Alan Horn did this, and then say, well, Alan Horn wasn't even there. And, you get, because there's so many points of view in it. Another terrific book, and as you say.
And is it written like that? Is it written like
all
oral history?
How it came about was Grant McPhee is a terrific filmmaker. He's made a couple of movies, one Sounds from Scotland and one Teenage Superstars, all about this period of Scottish music.
I've seen it.
And he
it's not the same as Big Gold Dream, is it?
Oh,
no.
Big Gold Dream. He's done. I think he's done that one as well. Now I'm going to have to check that out. So he did hours and hours of interviews for those films, and he had loads left over. So that forms the basis of this book. So it's really just. And there's some research as well. People who are no longer around were at the time and all that kind of stuff. But mainly it's a brand new kind of interviews with those who are there and now remember just how, it was a time when Scottish music really made a dent globally. The Pastels were a huge influence on Nirvana, and, the Vaselines were as well. And this was the time that we're all going to the same pubs and, hanging out in the same flats in the West End or whatever, or hanging about in Coatbridge for some of them. I was particularly interested because it's kind of my time getting into music, but again, I think it'll have wider interest than that. And there's a foreword by music lover Ian Rankin as well.
Because a lot of it is about fast product as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's the label I didn't really know about. I knew Postcard's been told, the story's been told a few times, but fast product hasn't so much. So you get Davy Henderson and the Fire Engines and I'm forgetting. And then later Win and all of those bands that were kind of kicking, and Tam Dean Burns' band that he was in, that gets mentioned and all of this stuff. So it's for me, it was great because it was stuff I didn't know, particularly the fast product stuff, and how influential they then were on Factory Records and Zoo Records and Kitchenware in Newcastle and stuff like that.
No, I'm definitely going to get a copy when it comes out in paperback.
I feel like I've been talking for a long time. I've still got some music books to mention, but have you got anything you'd like to chat about?
Well, I can talk a couple of music books. They're not particularly Scottish. In fact, I didn't read as many music books as I normally do this year, which I'm totally going to rectify next year. So this is an ongoing project for me. I got this book last Christmas, and it's a re-release of a book that was maybe published in the 90s. It's called She-Bop, and it's the history of women in music. And I'm reading it really, really slowly. I think I'm only on the third chapter, I think. Because what I do is I read the chapter and then I go through the chapter and listen to everything that's talked about in the chapter. So that's why I'm reading it slowly, because it's taken me out ages to get through all the music as well.
Is it the kind of thing where you go down a YouTube rabbit hole and you think, oh, listen to that?
Yeah, we bemoan Spotify, and I totally get it, but that's the kind of project where Spotify comes on it in its own, because if I was to buy every single thing that's mentioned in this book, well, I'd be living in Mercedes or something. But so I think I suspect I'll be reading this book for a couple of years if I'm going at the pace that I'm going. And the other one, which I suspect you'll probably have in your pile as well, is this one.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to mention that, but I guess, as you say, White Rabbit are...
But it's White Rabbit, isn't it?
It is White Rabbit. Well, I will grab my copy because it's right here. Absolutely one of my books of the year. It's Sound of Being Human by Jude Rogers.
Yeah.
And, God, it's a mix
yeah.
between music memoir, personal memoir, and kind of those books like David Byrne's What Is Music, that kind of looks at the technical reasons or the emotional reasons that we fall in love with music when we do. But it's so well written. I love Jude as a journalist. I used to, especially when she wrote for the Word magazine, and this was great.
I know. I kind of felt weirdly for like the sort of half of it where she's talking about her childhood and all that kind of thing. I felt like I was Jude Rogers.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Because her frames of reference are so the same as mine. Like, you know, I wonder like the influence of smash hits on people, like the sort of Venn diagram or you know,
Smash Hits was an amazing magazine, and you know
it was.
Yeah.
It like it not only I don't like the thing is I don't not only did it influence people into the music that they kind of like, but I also think it infected our language and like our tone of voice when we write about stuff. Like there's such a far-reaching influence from Smash Hits magazine.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, you just feel that you could be pals with Jude Rogers, don't you? She's got that kind of welcoming way of bringing you in and telling you things, and you go, "Oh, you're right."
I know, and particularly, you know, especially, you know, I'm a massive Beatles fan, and the first chapter where she's talking about Pipes of Peace, and or was that? Yes, there's a chapter about her talking about Pipes of Peace. Well,
I mean, she does talk about
Pipes of Peace. I've taught, or maybe she wrote another thing that was in the media, like she did a special bit about Pipes of Peace.
Does it not get mentioned? But I don't think it's one of the tracks.
Yeah. I think there's a bit about Pipes of Peace in here, and I totally recognise it, and the Prince Charming chapter as well, the Buffalo Stance chapter, like it's just me. It's me.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. She's picked these tracks, as her chapters are called, and it's obviously very personal to her, but it's absolutely relatable. I mean, I think it's incredibly cleverly chosen, but I guess it's probably not. It probably just is the stuff that's and I remember seeing Nina Cherry on Top of the Pops and hearing Buffalo Stance and going, "Wow, who is this?"
Yeah, with her bum bag and her cycling shorts.
Yeah. And you know, even the final one, I Troll the Megahertz, which was Paddy McAloon kind of solo album, and it's about a 15 to 20 minute long piece of music. It just means the world to me because I got this and just played it and everything about it, and to hear someone else explain that in the same way, it's really special.
Yeah, it's another book that I cried while I was reading.
Well, what a heartbreaking opening.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like that thing about like listening to the charts on a Sunday, watching Top of the Pops on a Thursday, like these were like toms.
When life was good.
Yeah.
We all knew where we were. When Michael's cavalcade on a Sunday. Oh dear. No, let's not go. Well, the next book I want to talk about does exactly that, because it's Graham Thompson's Themes for Great Cities.
Yes.
A new history of Simple Minds. I was a massive Simple Minds fan. One of the first bands I ever saw live. I've seen them live a few times, and it was these early years when they were at their most interesting, you know, when they made like a huge amount of albums over a really short number of years that were absolutely incredibly powerful, and it went on to influence, you know, so many other bands. And Graham just really knows his stuff. He really gets, you know, he's a proper music journalist who does all the research and speaks to all the right people. Although, unfortunately, if I remember rightly, he doesn't get to speak to the drummer, whose name slips my mind, who always was introduced as the best young drummer in the world. But he doesn't get. But everyone else, Mel Gaynor, incredible drummer. But everyone else is spoken to, and from the guys who kind of fell out the band early on, and yeah, it's a terrific read, an absolutely terrific read.
I'm not familiar. I was especially not familiar with the early stuff. Like, like I kind of know them from their sort of Pompey Stadium.
Yeah. I know, and that's a bit of a shame, because I think for a lot of people, they go, it's a bit like U2. They go, oh man, too big, it's too much. But if you go and listen to both bands' really early stuff, it's really interesting, particularly Simple Minds, who are just electronically, you know.
Because he did a wee playlist for books from Scotland,
Right.
and the ones that I listened to there, I was like, oh, this is, yeah, I wasn't expecting that, and yeah.
If you don't know early Simple Minds, particularly the new Gold Dream album, I would say go back and check it out because it's uplifting music.
Okay.
Well, that's your homework for today. Do you have any other music books before I mention a couple?
No, as I say, I didn't read as many music, though I will say that I've been saving what it's in my bedroom, but I'm saving it for the Christmas holidays so I can properly luxuriate in it. It's not that one, but that's in my pile over there to be read as well. It's Bob Stanley's Let's Do It.
Yeah.
It's the sort of the prehistory of pop. So that's going to be my Christmas holiday project.
Well, there was two more I want. Oh no, there's not. There's a pile here. Oh God, there's three more.
What about Hey America?
Hey America by the great Stuart Cosgrove, and
Yes.
once again proving that nobody's writing about American culture and music and politics that as Stuart does. Now I know this was his PhD, wasn't it? It was kind of his background.
So, yeah.
But he's done his Detroit and all that kind of series of books, and this really goes in deep into as he says, the untold story of black music, the epic story of black music and the White House, and it's quite astonishing. It's kind of dropping in places when you get to see the kind of relationships and the way a lot of black musicians were used and then thrown away by various people in the White House and in general kind of society as well.
Yeah, the relationship between music and politics is a funny one. Like, it kind of makes me laugh every so often. You just see like musicians on Twitter saying, Donald Trump did not get permission to use this song, or Boris Johnson did not get permission. And you're just like, nobody wants to be seen with them.
I remember when David Cameron said he was a big Smiths fan, and Johnny Marr just went, "Oh, fuck off, mate."
No, you're no.
No, you're not.
Clearly you're not, or you wouldn't have turned out the way you have.
But yeah, Stuart's always worth reading, and that's another terrific book. A wee book I wanted to talk about, which I really enjoyed, by Polygon, Edinburgh's Great.
Yeah.
I would really like them to do this for other Scottish cities. I hope they do.
I think that was the plan, because I mean, this was in the works when I still worked there. So I think the pandemic sort of delayed things a bit. I think there will be, though maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I might be wrong. Things might have probably changed since I was there. So, but yeah,
it's a really fascinating and great look at Edinburgh's music scene. Goes to venues, it goes to bands, it goes to events, past and present. Yeah, really, really good read. And I do hope.
Is that got Beatles fans on the front cover as well?
The Beatles, it has. You know that picture, don't you?
My dad will probably be in there somewhere, because he went to see the Beatles when they were at, well, it's the old, is it still it's an Odeon now, but it used to be called the Regal back in the day when my dad went to see the Beatles there. He can't remember it. It gets on my nerves. I'm just like, tell me what they sang. I didn't care.
Last music one, very quickly for me, Tim Blanchard's Like Magic in the Streets, which covers a similar period, or the same period really, as Hungry Beat, looking at Orange Juice, Aztec Camera, the go-betweens, the Smiths and the Blue Nile, and kind of that period when indie music, before it became huge with Oasis and everything, was still kind of, you make your own fanzines and you make your own badges, and the music is just beautiful and quirky and weird, and yeah, lovely. So that was really early in the year. Like Magic.
Yeah, I've not come across that one.
Published by Crackle and Hiss, who I don't know whether it was just for this book, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out too.
Do you have other non-fiction books to talk about?
Me. I think that's me.
Right. Very quickly then, I've got 4 others. All very different. Yeah, 4 others.
Oh, yes.
Darren Galway and The Social Distance Between Us, How Remote Politics Wrecked Britain.
I have actually got that written in my notes.
Based on his kind of, not based on, but kind of taken from his Class Wars series, but it goes into things in much more detail. There's a lot of research, a lot of interviews with scientists and researchers and politicians and all sorts of things, and also some of Darren's own tales from his life. I was lucky enough to chair him at an event in Kilmarnock, and he was just fantastic, an absolute dream to chair, and a really, really interesting man.
Yeah. I put this in my sort of, and like a second, follow up to like a big debut. So yeah, like there's a lot
absolutely. Yeah, Poverty Safari was such a huge hit, and I hope this follows up, because he's one of the most kind of important commentators and writers in UK, I think.
I would agree.
Fascinating. The stuff about education in particular just it's going to make your hair turn grey. Yeah. But it really does.
Well, you can't see because I've got my fake blonde over it.
I wanted to mention, because I wanted to give them a big thumbs up for everything that they do, Bella Caledonia's Anthology of Writing from 2007 to 2021. It's a great book.
Year?
Oh, don't you start me.
So
yes, it is this year. And because we did a podcast with Mike, and we did a podcast with Neil Cooper and a couple of other people who I have forgotten, so I'm going to have to find out exactly who that is when you're talking. But it's a great anthology for what they work, and Bella Caledonia do such a power of great work and writing about stuff that other people just won't. And I think in a very balanced way. Other people might say no, but I think it is balanced, and it looks at all sides of things, and that comes across in the anthology.
Yeah, no, it's like a newsletter that you should just you get delivered in your inbox every day, and you're thankful for it.
I want to talk about the next one. Grant McPhee did do a Big Gold Dream.
All right, okay.
Superstar, so that's right. Now, here's one that maybe some people wouldn't expect, but I'm going to mention it. It's Gary McLean's Scottish Kitchen.
I think that's an absolutely fair enough thing to mention.
Some people might not know, but I used to be a chef, so I love my cookbooks. And this is one of the best I've read in ages. It's so Scottish. It's fantastic. It's got square.
My sister got a copy of it because she wants to learn all the Scottish stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Recipe for long sausage. You don't get that many other places. For morning rolls, for all sorts of things. Gleva souffle, the Forfar Bridie.
A Gleva souffle, interesting.
Yeah, it's a terrific book, and I spoke to Gary for the podcast, and what a lovely man he is. And yeah.
No, Black and White do a really good. They have a really good cookery book list, because not only have they done that, the Gary McLean, that's right, isn't it? They've had for the last 2 years, they've been publishing the Hebridean Baker books as well. Have you heard of the Hebridean Baker?
I saw them on the telly. They must have been on our programme. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're huge, like kind of TikTok and Instagram sensation.
Yeah. But his books are beautiful, and they're probably quite similar in the fact that they concentrate on Scottish recipes and sort of more traditional recipes. No, there's a good cookery, like Kitchen Press as well. They're a tiny publisher based in Dundee, and they do brilliant books and really well produced, because it's expensive to do cookery books well.
Absolutely. Yeah, to get the photography and to get everything.
Yeah.
Well, I would say if you have a foodie in your life and you're looking for a Christmas present, that is the perfect book for them. He won MasterChef Professionals, in case you didn't know. That's how good he is.
I don't think I watched that series. I come and go with MasterChef, so I've not seen every series.
I'm a devotee. Now, finally, I wanted to talk about Alan Reach's Scottish literature and introduction, because if you don't know your Scottish literature, wow, it's a huge undertaking, but this is the perfect place to start. Alan was my professor at uni, so I know him pretty well, but he really does know his stuff, and I knew that anyway. Yeah, there's stuff in here that I didn't know, so it's great to kind of, even if you think you know what your Scottish literature this will change your mind and it'll know you more. And it does cover key works in Scots and Gaelic as well, which, you know, sometimes wasn't done in kind of previous Scotland anthologies.
I've got that on my bedside table, and I think I've been saying this a lot today, but it's going to be a project of mine where maybe like I'll do like a chapter a week or a month or something like that and immerse myself in it.
I was wondering if you would like to talk about state of publishing. Now, because back in again for the book festival again this year, as we did last year, we collaborated on a podcast. This time we spoke to 404 Inc., Hunt Publishing, Saraband, Arkbound, Cranachan, Knight Errant, Charco, who we've spoken about, and BHP Comics. It was a fantastic, you know, breadth and width of what's happening in Scottish publishing. It was great. But some of them, I have to admit, were wary of the future. You know, it wasn't all this is going great guns. There was a bit of kind of caution there. Is that fair to say?
I think, yeah, this has been quite a challenging year. I mean, I don't think that will be a surprise to anybody because we've all been seeing the headlines about other arts sectors as well, you know, with the film house and the film festival. And
absolutely, film house, that's heartbreaking. Yeah,
I know, but I saw yesterday that there might be a reprieve there, so we'll see. But it's similar with publishing, and I think we're really starting to see the consequences of the COVID hit, particularly for independent publishers, because, you know, there was as the pandemic was going on, like sort of maybe 2020, 2021, the media was full of stories about how books were holding their own, they were doing great guns, and, you know, like, hey, the book. And that's true. Like the sales for books in 2020 and 2021 were massive, but there's been such a contraction in the long tail. So before the pandemic, you really saw that, you know, there wasn't, you know, like big book publishing. It would still happen, but it wasn't just about the big books. There was always like a real strength in depth, and like there would always be like surprises and stuff like that, and like, you know, emerging things would come through, and that's been less of the case during the pandemic. The independents in particular have found it really quite hard to gain as much traction during the pandemic. You know, I mean, because there's a lot more conservative choices, safe choices, because, you know, everybody was just worried about losing money. So it's understandable, but it's a real shame. So the independents have been working really hard and not always seeing the benefit of that hard work, and it's really starting to bite now. That said, that doesn't mean that there's not been like brilliant successes and new authors coming through, because I mean we've just spoken about a whole like loads of new authors coming through, and just
spent well over 3 hours, I think, talking about. So something's going right.
You know, some publishers have really come through it. I mean, Canongate, for example, are absolutely just smashing it sales wise at the moment, and, you know, their Scottish books are like contributing to that, like the Dark Remains, the McIlvanney and the Rankin book has been doing great guns, and I know that there's other publishers that are members of Publishing Scotland who have been doing really well despite, you know, the hard sort of landscape that we're in. But I didn't really notice this year, because it was the year of Scotland Stories, so we were collaborating a lot more with festivals this year. And from the very beginning of the year, we were kind of like, oh, the festival attendances seem to have gone down. They're not coming back yet, even though the pandemic seems to be as over as it could be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you kind of and as the year kept going, you were kind of like, oh, well, we'll get to that festival and it'll have changed by then. But actually it doesn't. It just seems that the events have really suffered, which for independent publishers is the place where they can really perform well in marketing and get to bookshops and festivals and all that kind of thing. And that's not been as prominent as normal. which, you know, and I suspect 2023 is going to be tough as well. I think we'll see a lot less publishing from independents this year, as they just sort of corral themselves and just sort of play it safe and sort of ride out what's happening at the moment. The only festival that seems to have completely just not been affected and did great guns and were at like 2019 levels was Bloody Scotland. Bloody Scotland did really, really well. And what's it? The Blair Gowrie bookmark in Blair Gowrie. They had a cracking weekend as well, where it was like full houses as well. So it's not as if every single festival did really, really badly. There was really, like, you know, big standouts. So, you know, it's not unsalvageable. It's not. Like, I think caution and hard work is what is going to be a key thing in 2023, just because it's really tough. And there was other things this year that didn't help. You know, there was real supply chain issues this year, which is, you know, the most boring phrase you've ever heard in books, but
but it happened with music as well. People who are wanting to get their albums onto vinyl were facing months and months of wait to kind of do these things. So
the cost of printing has skyrocketed. Brexit really hasn't helped. So many people are just they can't even sell their books into Europe anymore in the way that they could, because it just costs too much. Okay, it's just, there's a lot of things to struggle, things that sort of bring struggle, but we endure and succeed.
Onwards and upwards, as Roger Glennis always says. It's good to hear that crime fiction lovers are hardcore. Well, we go out no matter what.
It's like, I'm going to that festival. Well, it just because
Bloody Scotland, bloody watch me.
So, which was interesting. It's like that's got a specific community, and the Bookmark Festival is really rooted in its community as well. I wonder. I don't know if there's something in that, like a specific community building a community.
Edinburgh moved homes this year.
Well, no, it was 2021 was its first year.
Oh,
at the art college, So this was their second year. It's a temporary, like, they're going to the rebuilding that's happening at the Quarter Mile, where the old Royal Infirmary was. That's going to be their permanent home in 2025, I think it is 2024, 2025. But a couple more years at the ECA, and then
we're not going to be doom and gloom, because some publishers did seem to have a really, I thought Polygon seemed to have a really incredible year, real breadth and width of stuff that they published. We spoke about Taproot and some of the books that they had out. They also did, which I wanted to mention, I thought I wouldn't mention in fiction, but we'll mention it now, is they published All the Way Home anthology for the 30 Years Off the Rock Trust. Which was a homeless charity, and it's a great collection of poetry and prose. Really, really good read. I think you can still get it. I'm sure you can. And 50%.
I hear every day from Patrick. What's your stock levels?
Well, there you go. Tell him. It's a terrific read, and for a really, really good cause. Leamington Press, as we mentioned again, they kind of helped with the Bella Caledonia book and Polaris and all these things. Are there other published? Charcoal, who we've mentioned, they're kind of really getting into translation, and I think they're having a non-translated, a kind of English.
They're doing English language first books, but they have translation as its theme. So so it's not like they're just doing English language fiction, but it's still rooted in what they do.
Saraband and the Contraband, imprint Saraband had a cracking year. and 404 Inc. I think, you know.
They're Inklings. Yeah, they're, yeah.
Leamington Books, I just remembered they're doing something called Novella Express. Is that right?
Yeah. So they're doing. You can buy them individually. You can buy the each individual novella as a standalone, but you can also buy them in this package where it's got 3 in one, and they're going to do a few of them throughout the year. So the first one's just about released, or has just been released, or it's coming imminently, I think. And it's just a mixture of genres, different types of writing, and
It's fascinating.
yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Before we end this thing that we do, let's talk a little bit about some books which are coming out in 2023. Do you have any that you're really excited about?
Yeah, I think Angry Women are still going to feature.
Or Angry Ladies, as you said at one point earlier, which I thought was very.
Did I say Angry Ladies? That's funny. Funnily enough, you were talking about the Olga Wojta's book about Macbeth, and there's a couple of books coming out that also have Macbeth as an inspiration. So the first one is called Lady Macbethad, and it's a Swedish writer who is sort of doing a retelling of the Lady Macbeth story as a novel. And also, I just read today, because you know Eleanor Catton, who won the Booker with the Luminaries.
Oh yes.
I loved the Luminaries.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it. Yeah.
And her next book is called Burnham Wood, and it uses Macbeth as its inspiration. So I'm looking forward to those two. And then there's one coming out in January. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
Sorry.
Right.
The title, it's a long title, so I want to get it right, but it's by Victoria Mackenzie. I've got a proof here, and it's called For Thy Great Pain Have Mercy on My Little Pain. And it's a fictionalized account of the lives of Marjorie Kemp and Julian of Norwich. Right. So I'm wondering if the theme for next year is historical ladies. And rage and retelling of women from history who went through it.
No, absolutely. Well, one I've been sent through, which I haven't started yet, but I'm looking forward to it, is Alison Shaw's Ashes and Stones, A Scottish Journey in Search of Witches and Witness. So that would be an interesting one to read. Looking forward to that.
Witches has been a very big theme over the last year or so. So it's interesting that it'll carry on into next year. Oh, that sounds good. When's that coming?
Oh, no, I just know it's 19th of January. There you are.
Oh God, right? I should know about that.
But I thought that kind of almost fits into the angry women that you're talking about, because there's a lot of anger, still is, and rightly so, about not just what happened to the people who were killed as witches, but the reaction still to this day. You know, I know Zoe Venditozzi has, got a podcast, Witches of Scotland, and there's, still a lot of that kind of thing. So rightly so, it's not being forgotten. Do you have another? Do you have anything?
I know that Kathleen Jamie's bringing out a new book next year, and Zoe Strachan's bringing out a book next year.
Good.
Leila
Abulela.
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's good.
River Spirit. That's going to be early in the year, because I think I've got a proof winging its way towards me now. Lovely. So really looking forward to that. I'm hoping we can interview Leila for Snack Magazine. That'd be great.
I'm looking forward to Doug Johnson's science fiction book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Remember we spoke about Pendergast's Fall by David Cameron, which I think was the first into a creative book. It was certainly
Femke
is coming out now. Femke, I've read it. I'm lucky enough to have read it.
All right, okay.
It was going to come out this year, and then they've held it over to next year. It's a cracking book. It's really interesting. The Femke, this central character, and it's the way that other people react to her that is really the kind of center of the story. And so that's coming out very soon as well. And then George Patterson, who we mentioned earlier on, for inspiring Scots to write about America. His next novel, which is Westerwick, should be coming out late summer. So I'm really looking forward to that, because the last one was, exceptional.
No, but yeah, I still need to properly get into what's happening next year. This year went too fast.
Yes,
I'm not prepared.
Well, Vikki, I think it's good we don't have much else to talk about, because we have been going for some time. My voice is going, and it's only been lubricated by red wine, so I don't know how good that is for it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure, Vikki, to have you on talking books each year.
Yes, it is.
And we'll be back soon with another Best of 2022 podcast. So I will see you then.